So on a college football Saturday where the number one overall consensus quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft is not playing, we're going to talk about a different quarterback who's not playing, and that is Trey Lance from North Dakota State. So the FCS has entirely canceled its 2020 season. They are currently talking about a spring season, and living in the FCS territory of the Missouri Valley Conference, go Youngstown State. I'm fully aware of what Trey Lance brings to the table despite his limited appearances in games throughout his college career. So right now, I'd say Trey Lance is probably the consensus or arguable quarterback 3 for the top quarterback rankings in the next draft. Everybody seems to be pretty much settled, at least at this moment, on almost said Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence as the number one quarterback for this draft, who will unquestionably go to whoever owns the first overall pick. And right now, that's looking like it's going to be none other than the New York Jets. And then we have Justin Fields at number 2, and then the conversation turns to Trey Lance, who right now I believe does have that, has that QB3 spot pretty much locked down. But the fact that Zach Wilson and Kyle Trask have been making a lot of noise. I'm going to do this a lot because the Clemson game is on right now, and they are actually finally coming back against Boston College. It's been a wild game. So 28-26, they just scored. So getting back to Trey Lance, you have Zach Wilson, who has played a lot of games this year, and he has looked really dominant, 16 touchdowns, 1 interception, just absolutely slinging the ball all over the field despite the losses that he's had in his wide receiver group. And there's also Kyle Trask, who has lost some momentum due to the COVID outbreak at the University of Florida. They've missed a couple of weeks. And then we have some quarterbacks in the I don't know how you would say it, like in the weeds, if you will, that we're not talking about just yet. But at the same time, just to sort of like end this part of the video here, where we talk about which quarterbacks are ascending in the ranks. Trey Lance is going to have a difficult time doing that going forward because the one game that he's played is over. So it is what it is at this point. So really all we have left to look at is the tape. And unfortunately, there's not much of it. But taking a look at the profile, he's a redshirt sophomore, 6'4", 226 pounds. 2019, it was his breakout year, 16 games, 192 completions on 287 attempts. That's 66.9% completion percentage. 2,786 yards through the air, 28 touchdowns, and no interceptions. That is dominant. 169 carries for another 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns on the ground. So you get the best of both worlds in a Trey Lance. And I think going forward, we're going to start to see a lot more teams sort of utilize that style of play at the quarterback position. I think the era of the statuesque Peyton Mannings, John Elways, and Brett Favre's are dead, done, and gone. Maybe not quite 100% yet, but at the same time, it seems that it would be better to have a Josh Allen than it would to be a Phillip Rivers, especially at this point in Phillip Rivers' career. I know that's an unfair comparison, but at the same time, it's just the nature of reality that the modern NFL is transitioning into this this era of mobile quarterbacks. And it's not we talk about mobile quarterbacks, and a lot of people say running quarterbacks. Running quarterbacks where their first read is a run, I think is overly skewed. Now, Lamar Jackson in Baltimore is the guy that gets comped a lot to these guys. Yeah. So, that offense is sort of designed to take advantage of his strengths, and one of his strengths is running the football. Now, he does throw a really nice football down the field. He's had some pretty good games throwing the football. I would argue that his wide receiver group is not as, good as could be to help elevate him into the next level as far as the passing game goes, but that is a discussion for a different day. You take a look at the history of, I think Michael Vick was just way, way, way before his time back in the early 2000s. And then, you got guys in the modern era right now, like Aaron Rodgers, pretty mobile. He's not a running quarterback, but he's pretty mobile. And then you got guys like Kirk Cousins who, yeah, they can venture outside of the pocket every now and then, but it doesn't look very good, and you don't want him doing it anyway. So a guy like Trey Lance is somebody that, we're going to be seeing more of, Even Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence have that mobility. They just don't have it to the degree that a Trey Lance does. And, he's pretty comparable to like Kyler Murray, just a little bit taller and maybe not as much of the natural accuracy as Kyler Murray has. But he's quick on his feet. And Kyler Murray was a number 1 overall draft pick. And after 2 years in the league, he looks pretty good. His team's got a good record. They look like they're headed for the playoffs. So, I think that the era of statuesque tall pocket passers is slowly closing that window. And another part of that, just to sort of add on to this rant, if you will, would be the fact that the offensive linemen in college are not being very well prepped for the NFL, and that has sort of forced a lot of change in the NFL at the offensive line position. Because I mean, just look at the offensive lines around the league. The ones that are really good don't last very long. I mean, the Colts offensive line has struggled. That was supposed to be a good one. The Cowboys offensive line was a good one, and it is now decimated. And it's just tough, to sustain that kind of pass protection these days for quarterbacks to stand in the pocket and have 4 seconds to throw. So I think mobility, the ability to climb the pocket, the ability to feel the pressure are going to be really important key factors going forward as we continue on with this league. So I'm taking a look at the only game that they played in 2022, in 2020, Trey Lance performed okay. 15 of 30, 50% completion, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 15 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. So you got really a glimpse of what he's going to be at the next level. And I remember when they scheduled this game against Central Arkansas, there was a lot of criticism, like, it's one game, you don't need to do it, it's just going to affect your draft stock negatively. And I think this was the best outcome that Trey Lance could have asked for, because I don't really think it hurt him or helped him. It was just kind of neutral. It's like, okay, we got to see what we saw last year. That's great. And one scouting report that I said, the fact that he played in the FCS helps his case because he was dominant, right? Because we'll just segue into the pros. And that is one of the pros that's up there was his efficiency. He was dominant and efficient against his competition. And if you're going to be an FCS quarterback looking to make it in the NFL draft, you have to be that. You can't just be, one step above the quarterback that comes in second place, right? You have to make that gap be extreme, because it's a different world in the FCS compared to the FBS, especially when you just look at the difference between the Power 5 and Group of 5 conferences. But the FCS can hold its own, very much so. We get upsets all the time, every year. It happens. North Dakota State has been one of the premier universities programs to be involved with FCS football over the last 10 years. Ever since they came over to the Missouri Valley Conference, which back then was the Gateway Conference. I like that name way better. Please go back to that. So yeah, it's Trey Lance comes from a university that has done very well in prepping guys for the next level, and they have one of their senior offensive tackles actually got a Senior Bowl invite this year, so he looks like he will be potentially a late first round pick, maybe an early day 2 pick. When it comes to Trey Lance, the other pros, we'll get back to Trey Lance. I'm kind of all over the place here because it's just an exciting topic to talk about. The athleticism, the unique athleticism given his stature, the mobility given his stature, all things that you're definitely going to be able to take advantage of at the next level. We've seen it. If you get the right offensive coordinator in place, the right offensive scheme, you can definitely make this work. I don't think it has to be an air raid offense a la Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona, but it can definitely be something. Plays under center more often than you would think. He's not exclusive to the shotgun, which is good because you want your quarterback to be versatile in that situation. We've already talked about the efficiency. Another scout said tremendous potential, very, very high ceiling, high upside, and those kinds of praise and phrases that you hear from scouts indicate that he's definitely worthy of the draft position that he's being mocked to. So right now, I believe he could go anywhere from 3 to probably 10 overall. One scout said he's definitely a top 10 pick, could go even higher. I think that I don't really think there's an opportunity for him to jump Trevor Lawrence in the draft. I think there's a small opportunity for him to jump Justin Fields. Not a lot, small, but it's there. So I think we're definitely looking at top 10 as far as draft position goes. Negatives for Trey Lance. And this is both, not coming from me. This is coming from scouts, and this is going to come from pundits and critics of his as we get closer to the draft and go through this process. They're going to point these things out, so we might as well just, acknowledge it now instead of pretending that it's not real. The experience. He's only played 17 games. That's tough, especially when it's only 17 FCS games. They're going to call out that nonstop. They're going to call out his lack of competition, right? But it is what it is. I've always said that you can only play who is on your schedule. When I was defending Boise State 20 years ago in Hawaii, and when I was defending UCF just a couple years ago. It's not your fault that the university schedules who it can. There's, you can call up a university, be like, hey, can we schedule a home and home? They're either going to say yes or no. There's nothing else you can do. If you beat the teams that are on your schedule, you did what was in front of you. That's all you can be asked to do. Same thing in this situation. The other knock that I saw from multiple scouts, and which is the reason that I bring this up, is the inconsistent accuracy. There was noticeable trends on tape, according to some of the scouts that provided their reports, was that they noticed that the accuracy on both the intermediate and deep routes was inconsistent. There was some plays that you're like, oh, you see that throw, you wish you had it back, just to tweak it a little bit. So that'll be something to keep an eye on going forward, especially since we have no more games to watch. How is that going to affect his draft stock once we get closer to April and all these things start getting scrutinized under a very fine microscope? So that is a take on Trevor Lawrence. Not much to go on because of the limited experience that he has, but at the same time, a very unique, a very intriguing prospect. Definitely top 10 material, and I'd be surprised to see him go after Zach Wilson. But right now, Zach Wilson is making a case that he could definitely jump into the top 10 mix. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.